Hi, boys and girls. I'm Mrs. Tischer. I teach library at Roosevelt Elementary, 1st through 4th grade. We are doing some AMI lessons, alternative methods of instruction for library. We know a lot of kiddos love library. We're going to focus today. My book is for 4th grade. Anybody could do it, but it is geared toward them. We talk a lot about American legends, folk tales, tall tales. They're kept in $3.98 in the nonfiction section of our library. This one's John Henry, one of my favorites. And we've talked about it before. And I have some cool activities to go with it too. It is by Ezra Jack Keats. So I'm going to read it to you. I'll share the activities and some links, things you can do at home. A hush settled over the hills. The sky swirled soundlessly around the moon, and the river stopped murmuring. The wind stopped whispering. The frogs and the owls and the crickets fell silent, all watching, all waiting, all listening. Then the river roared. The wind whispered, and the whistles, and it sang. The frogs croaked again, and the owls hooted, and the crickets chirped. "Welcome, welcome," echoed through the hills. It was John Henry. John Henry was born. He was born with a hammer in his hand. Bang, 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 ringing that little John Henry's hammer through the cabin as he crawled about. "What's that little rascal up to now?" asked his mama. And before she knew it, he was big enough to help her around the house. One day, he grew up. He worked with his father. And John Henry thought, "I'm taller and I'm stronger than anyone around. It's time I go out into the real world." He said goodbye to his mom and dad, and off he went. He worked on the farms and in the cotton fields, but all that was too tame. So he got himself a job on the riverboat. One stormy night, the ship plowed through the darkness. Suddenly, the big steel rod that turned the paddle wheel broke. The wheel stopped turning. Smash went the rod through the bottom of the ship. "Pump the water!" shouted the captain. Go get to the port before we all sink." John Henry leaped to that paddle wheel crank. He seized it, pushed and grunted and pulled. Slowly, the giant wheel turned again. With all his strength, he kept it turning. "Lord Almighty, help us," someone whispered in that long, dark night. And as day broke, they slided right before shore and pulled into port. A thunderous cheer went up for that John Henry. Pretty strong. John Henry felt an excitement in the air. Men were talking of railroads being built from the Atlantic to the Pacific. They're going to lay those tracks over rivers, across prairies and deserts, and right through the mountains. And through the Indian lands and stampeding buffalo herds and badlands. "Goodbye, boys," cried John Henry. "I'm going to swing me a hammer and make them beautiful new tracks." "My hands are just itching to hold that hammer again," John Henry said. He tried one on for size and laughed. "It sure does feel fine." How he drove those spikes, singing to the clanging of his hammer. The men joined in, their voices singing, hammers ringing, and John Henry's gang was in the lead. As day after day, the tracks moved steadily westward. And I have a railroad spike to show you. This is what he drove in, these kind of spikes from the railroad. You've probably seen it before. Rising across their path was a sprawling mountain range. Its snow-capped peaks reached high into the clouds. "We'll have to tunnel through," said his friend Little Bill. "It'll be awful dangerous." "Could be cave-in," someone put in. "That suits me just fine," said John Henry. "Me too," added Little Bill. "Here's how we'll do it, boys," the foreman called out. "A couple of men will drive a hole into the rock. Then the powder men will put the dynamite into the hole and explode it. Others will cart the loose rock away. We'll do this again and again until we have a tunnel right through the mountain. It's going to be a real big tunnel, boys. Big enough for a giant locomotive pulling one of them long steam trains. All right, boys, let's blast away. They had a plan. Deep into the mountain they worked. As John Henry's singing echoed through the tunnel, the powder men got ready to blast more rock. They filled the hole with dynamite, put in a long fuse, and they lit it. "Run, men!" called the foreman. They all scrambled back, ready to dash clear of the blast. At that instant came a great crackling and rumbling. "It's a cave-in! We're trapped!" There was no place to run. The fuse burned closer to the dynamite. John Henry was nearest to the fuse. He ran to put it out, but he tripped and fell. "Oh, I'm hurt bad," he groaned. "I can't get up." The fuse burned farther out of reach. Others rushed toward it, but they were too far away. Suddenly, John Henry remembered he still had his hammer in his hand. Down came that hammer, smack on the burning tip. The fuse was out. Danger past. Sighs of relief filled the smoky tunnel. "Woo! Help me up, boys," mumbled John Henry. Clearing their way through that cave-in, the men carried him to safety. Some days later, they heard an unfamiliar clatter. Down the tunnel came a group of men with a strange machine. "This is a steam drill. It can drill more holes faster than any 6 men combined," a man bragged. "Who can beat that?" John Henry stepped forward. "Try me." He and Little Bill took their workplaces, and John Henry gripped his hammer. Little Bill clutched his steel drill. "Check that machine," came an order. A nervous hand fell on the switch. In the dark, both sides waited for the signal to start. A hoarse voice counted 1, 2. They're going to have a race. 3. The machine shrieked as it started. John Henry swung that hammer, and a crash of steel on steel split the air. Clang, clang, clang. The drill got red hot in Little Bill's hands. He quickly dropped it and picked up another. Hiss, whistle, rattle. Men frantically heaved coal into the hungry, roaring engine and poured water into the steaming boiler. Whoop, clang, whoop, bang. John Henry's hammer whistled as he swung it. Chug, chug, clatter, rattled the machine. Hour after hour raced by. The machine was ahead. "Hand me that 20-pound hammer, Little Bill." Harder and faster crashed the hammer. Great chunks of rock fell as John Henry ripped hole after hole into the tunnel wall. The machine rattled and whistled and drilled even faster. Friends doused John Henry and Little Bill with cold water just to keep them going. Then John Henry took a deep breath, picked up 2 sledgehammers and sang, "Ain't no hammers strike such fire. Strike like lightning, Lord, I won't tire. Hammers like this, Lord, there's never been. I'll keep swinging them, Lord, until we win." John Henry swung both hammers faster and faster. He moved so fast the men could see only a blur and sparks from the striking hammers. His strikes rang out across great heartbeats. At the other side of the tunnel, the machine shrieked, groaned and rattled and drilled. Then all at once, it shook and shuddered, wheezed and stopped. Frantically, men worked to get it going again, but they couldn't. It collapsed. Henry's hammer still rang and echoed through that tunnel with a strong and steady beat. Suddenly, there was a great crash. Light streamed into the dark tunnel. John Henry had broken through. Wild cries of joy burst from the men. Still holding one of the hammers, John Henry stepped out into the glowing light of the dying day. It was the last step he ever took. Even the great heart of John Henry could not bear the strain of this last task. John Henry died with a hammer in his hand that day. If you listen to the locomotives roaring through the tunnels and across the land, you'll hear them ringing, singing of that great steel-driving man, John Henry. Just listen. Now, there's a little video that I will link. It's a documentary-like video. It's really good, and it's not a cartoon. Some 3rd graders and 4th graders saw it last year. But it's really good. Kids love to watch it. They beg to watch it. Always have to wait till we do the American legends and folk tales to do it, but I will link it with this. Also, there's a website. You can take like a virtual tour of where the monument is today, where the tunnel is. Now, we don't know how much of the story is true. Some people have even called it a tall tale, that it's kind of fabricated and exaggerated as people tell it generation after generation. So we don't know if he did die that day. There's more information on the website about what they've believed and how they've built this park around. It's taken them a while to get this park going. There's a couple activities. If you have cans laying around your house, you could build a tunnel. Just build a little train tunnel out of cans. That's like a little activity you could do. I know a lot of you guys have Play-Doh or clay. My son built this tunnel for us, just for an example. It's a little clay tunnel, like John Henry broke through. Also, if you have marshmallows, toothpicks, you could make a tunnel or railroad out of that. Of course, tissue paper, toilet paper if you have that, or paper towels. You can make a big tunnel in your living room. Get your parents' permission. And then one of my favorites, everybody has Legos. A lot of you have Legos. This is my kiddos and I did this story yesterday, and I made them all build something, create something that went with the story, like a scene from the story. They built a tunnel. There, if you can see inside there, there's even railroad tracks in there. So create something that went along with that story, a tunnel, railroad track. You can view the website. You can even view the video that I'm going to link for you. And I hope you enjoy. I'll see you guys soon. Please stay safe. Love ya.